I was sitting on the porch of my newly bought lake house, finally breathing in peace after years of stress, when my phone rang. It was my father. Within 5 minutes of that call, I realized something terrifying. My own family was about to take away the only place I had left to heal. But what they didn't know was that I had already started preparing a welcome for them, one they would never forget. My name is Alina Voss, and this is the story of how my father and siblings tried to forcefully move into my lake house and how I made sure they paid for it. After working in a high-pressure corporate job for 7 years, I finally quit. I had saved enough money to buy a small but beautiful lake house in a quiet area. It was my dream, a place where I could finally rest, recover, and live without constant drama or interference from my family. The house was registered only in my name. For the first time in years, I felt truly at peace. I had only been living there for 4 days when my phone rang one evening. It was my father. I picked up the call still in a good mood. "Elena," he said in his usual commanding voice, "we're moving in tomorrow. Your brother and sister are coming with me. The house is big enough for all of us." I stayed silent for a few seconds, trying to understand if he was joking. "Dad, what are you talking about? This is my house. I bought it with my own money." He laughed lightly, as if I had said something ridiculous. "Don't be selfish. We're family. Your siblings need a place to stay right now, and I'm not going to waste money on rent when my own daughter has a house. We'll be there by tomorrow afternoon. Make sure the rooms are ready." I felt my chest tighten. "Dad, you can't just decide to move into my house like this. I need my space. I bought this place to live peacefully." His voice turned cold and sharp. "I'm your father. I don't need your permission. If you have a problem, then you can go live somewhere else. We're coming tomorrow, whether you like it or not." He ended the call. I stood there on the porch, holding my phone, feeling a strange mix of shock and anger. They weren't asking. They had already decided. Once again, my father was choosing my siblings over me, completely ignoring my boundaries and my need for peace. For a few minutes, I just stood there, trying to process everything. Then, slowly, I sat down on the chair. A small smile appeared on my face, not because I was happy, but because something inside me had already made a decision. They wanted to move in? Fine, but they were going to get a welcome they never expected. And by the time I was done, they would wish they had never stepped foot in my house. After ending the call with my father, I sat on the porch for a long time, staring at the calm lake in front of me. My hands were still trembling, but my mind was strangely clear. I had spent years being the good daughter who stayed quiet, who sacrificed her own needs for the family. But not anymore. I went inside the house and locked the door. Then I did something I had never done before. I started planning. First, I called a locksmith. I asked him to come the next morning at 8 a.m. sharp to change all the locks of the house. He agreed. Then I called my lawyer, Mr. David Reynolds, who had handled my grandfather's will earlier. I explained the situation to him. "Elena, if the house is solely in your name, then legally they have no right to move in without your permission." He said, "If they force their way in, it can be considered trespassing, but you need to be careful how you handle this." I told him exactly what I wanted to do. The next morning, the locksmith arrived on time and changed all the locks. I paid him and thanked him. After he left, I stood in front of the house and looked at it for a few seconds. This was my house, my peace, and I was done letting my family destroy it. Around 11 a.m., my father called again. "We're leaving in an hour," he said. "Make sure lunch is ready when we reach." I stayed calm and replied, "Dad, I already told you, you can't move in here." He laughed. "Stop this nonsense, Elena. We're family. We're coming whether you like it or not." I didn't argue. I simply said, "Okay," and ended the call. Then I made one more phone call, this time to the local police station. I explained my situation to the officer on duty and told him that some people were planning to forcefully enter my house without permission. He noted down my complaint and said they would send officers if needed. By 2 p.m., my father, brother, and sister arrived. I was standing near the window when I saw their car pull up. My father got out first, followed by my brother and sister. They were carrying bags and looked like they were moving in permanently.
My brother even had the audacity to laugh and say something to my sister as they walked toward the house. They reached the main door and tried to open it. It didn't open. My father tried again, then knocked loudly. "Elena, open the door." I didn't open it. Instead, I stayed inside and watched them through the window. My brother started banging on the door. "Elena, stop acting like a child. Open the damn door." My father's voice grew louder and angrier. "Elena, I know you're inside. This is ridiculous. Open the door right now or I'll break it." I took a deep breath and finally spoke through the closed door. "This is my house," I said clearly. "You have no right to enter without my permission. I already told you you can't move in here. Please leave." There was silence for a few seconds. Then my father shouted, "You ungrateful girl! After everything we did for you, this is how you treat your own family? Open the door or I'm calling the police." I replied calmly, "Go ahead, call them. I've already spoken to them." Just then, 2 police officers arrived in a patrol car. They had come because I had already filed a complaint earlier. One of the officers stepped forward and looked at my father. "Sir, we received a complaint that some people are trying to forcefully enter this property without permission. Is that true?" My father's face turned red with anger. He pointed at the house and said, "This is my daughter's house. We're family. She can't just lock us out like this." The officer looked at me and asked, "Ma'am, do you want these people inside your house?" I looked at my father, then at my brother and sister, and replied, "No, I don't." My father looked at me with pure shock and rage.
"Elena, you're really doing this to your own family?" I looked back at him without any emotion and said, "You did this to yourself the day you decided my house belonged to you and my siblings." The police officer turned to my father and said, "Sir, if you don't leave the property right now, we will have to take action." My father stood there for a few seconds, staring at me with disbelief. Then he turned around and started walking back toward his car. My brother and sister followed him, but not before my sister gave me one last hateful look. As they were getting into the car, my father stopped and looked back at me one last time. His voice was low, but filled with anger. "You're going to regret this, Elena. Mark my words." I didn't reply. I simply stood at the door and watched them drive away. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. My father was not the kind of man who accepted defeat easily, and I had a strong feeling that he was already planning his next move. After the police asked them to leave that day, my father, brother, and sister went back to their car. Before driving away, my father looked at me one last time from the window and said in a low, threatening voice, "You're going to regret this, Elena. You have no idea what you've started." I didn't reply. I simply closed the door and locked it. I knew my father wouldn't accept defeat so easily. He had always been controlling, and this was the first time someone in the family had openly gone against his wishes. I was sure he would try something else. 2 days later, my suspicion came true. I received a legal notice from my father's lawyer. In the notice, he claimed that the lake house was bought using family money and that he had the right to stay there. He also accused me of abandoning the family and demanded that I either let them stay or sell the house and divide the money among all siblings. I wasn't surprised. This was exactly the kind of move I expected from him. I immediately forwarded the notice to my lawyer. After reviewing everything, my lawyer looked at me and said, "Elena, this notice has no legal standing. The house is registered only in your name. However, your father is clearly trying to create pressure. We should respond strongly and also file a complaint for trespassing and harassment." I agreed. Over the next few weeks, things escalated. My father started spreading lies among our relatives, saying that I had become selfish and greedy after buying the house and that I had thrown my own family out on the street. Some relatives even called me to emotionally blackmail me into letting them stay. But I didn't budge. Instead, I did something that completely caught them off guard. I filed a formal police complaint against my father, brother, and sister for attempting to forcefully enter my property and for harassment.
Along with that, I also applied for a restraining order against them. When my father received the restraining order, he completely lost his temper. He called me again, this time shouting on the phone. "You've gone too far, Elena. You're destroying this family. Is this what your grandfather would have wanted?" I replied calmly, "Grandpa left this house to me because he knew how you people treated me. He wanted me to have a place where I could finally live in peace. You're the one who tried to take that away from me." He went silent for a few seconds, then said in a low voice, "You're gonna pay for this." I simply ended the call. 2 months later, the court gave its decision. My father and siblings were found guilty of trespassing and harassment. They were ordered to stay away from me and my property. Because of the legal case and the restraining order, my father's image in our social circle took a big hit. Many people who once respected him started distancing themselves. But the final blow came when I decided to sell the lake house. I had no emotional attachment left to that place anymore. The peace I wanted there was already destroyed because of them. So I sold the house at a good price and moved to another city. Before leaving, I made sure my father received one last message through my lawyer. "You wanted the house so badly. Now it belongs to someone else. Consider this your final notice." Today, I live peacefully in another city. I have a good job and a quiet life. I don't have any contact with my father or siblings anymore. Sometimes I think about that Christmas morning when my father threw me out of my own house. If he hadn't done that, maybe things would have been different. But because he did, I learned to protect myself. I didn't just survive what they did to me. I made sure they understood that I was no longer the same person they could control and use whenever they wanted.